Okay, and then the last type of efficiency we're going to look at is output efficiency, where the inputs are allocated to producing the optimal set of goods, right? Even if you have input efficiency, we might want some firms to have more of both inputs, capital and labor, so they produce more and other firms produce less. The output efficiency is going to hold when there's no way to make more of another good, which entails making less of another good, in a way that makes consumers happier. Okay, so let's think about this a little bit further. Let's add this new concept. So the new concept is the marginal rate of transformation, or MRT. It's the rate at which one type of good can be transformed into another type of good. Don't think of it like you're literally transforming the good. It's shuffling the inputs around ahead of time. Like, how many more computers can we get if we make one less chair or something like that? Okay. Now, the rate at which you trade off making those two goods, assuming that they're made as cheaply as possible, that is the marginal rate of transformation, is going to be equal to the ratio of marginal costs. Right? If one good costs twice as much to make as another, it must be using twice as much of the inputs in dollar terms to make it. And so think about, if it costs twice as much to make a computer as it costs to make a chair, that's obviously a very nice chair, but then if you got rid of one computer, you could make two more chairs. Okay, that's the idea behind the marginal rate of transformation. Okay. Now, when the marginal rate of transformation is equal to the marginal rate of substitution that consumers have, then you have output efficiency. It's basically saying a trade-off between goods that you could make is the same as a trade-off that consumers make between goods. So let's say that you could make two more chairs if you got rid of one laptop. If consumers are indifferent between getting two more chairs and one less laptop, and they are in their initial allocation, then firms and consumers would have the same trade-offs. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. So let's think about when that occurs. So remember, when consumers are maximizing utility, they set the marginal rate of substitution of X for Y equal to the marginal utility of X, or the marginal utility of Y, which, when they're optimizing, they will set equal to the ratio of prices. If you forget why the ratio of marginal utility should be equal to the ratio of marginal prices when a consumer is maximizing, go back and review lectures 5 and 6. Okay, now, if the market is perfectly competitive, then price is equal to marginal cost. Hence, in that case, if the markets are competitive for goods X and for good Y, then the ratio of prices is equal to the ratio of marginal costs, which, remember, is equal to the marginal rate of transformation of X for Y. When you have a perfectly competitive market where price is equal to marginal cost, hence P of X is equal to the marginal cost of X and P of Y is equal to the marginal cost of Y, it will hold that the marginal rate of substitution is equal to the marginal rate of transformation. Hence, output efficiency will hold. Okay? For it not to hold, you would need the ratio of prices to, let's say, be greater than the ratio of marginal costs. Well, when will that occur? If the market for good X is a monopoly market, then the firm in that market will charge a price greater than marginal cost. And hence, in that case, the ratio of prices will be greater than the ratio of marginal costs. Hence, the marginal rate of substitution that consumers have will be different than the marginal rate of transformation. And in that case, the market will not lead to output efficiency. Then it suggests that to restore output efficiency, what we need to do is we need to somehow get rid of the monopolist. And we talked about how regulators have tried to make it difficult to obtain a monopoly for improper reasons, by merging just to get a monopoly, by effectively getting a monopoly by colluding, other things like that. Right? So that it comes back to this general idea that we should look at when a free market would lead to an efficient outcome and when it would not. When it would not, we know that there is some better outcome out there, and we should try to put policies in place to reach that efficient outcome. Okay, so in summary, there are 3 conditions for overall Pareto efficiency. Okay, if you have that there's exchange efficiency, that all consumers have the same marginal rate of substitution, and you have input efficiency, that all producers have the same marginal rate of technical substitution, and you have output efficiency, all consumers have a marginal rate of substitution equal to the marginal rate of transformation, then you have overall efficiency in the market. And there's something really cool. The first welfare theorem states that perfectly competitive markets in general equilibrium distribute resources in a Pareto efficient way. Now, this is quite an amazing result. It means that if you have markets that are perfectly competitive, then even without any government intrusion, you get an efficient result. So you don't need to do anything. Now, of course, this relies on a lot of assumptions. It assumes there's no market power. So it assumes that firms and consumers take the prices of goods and inputs as given. And we saw where this fails. If you have a monopsony, then you don't have input efficiency. If you have a monopoly, then you don't have output efficiency. Okay? And so we see that you might want to actually have some government interventions in these cases. Okay? Another assumption is that firms and consumers act rationally without any cognitive limitations. Okay, so when might this fail? Well, if there are search costs or other things like that, that might fail as well. Additionally, we assume away asymmetric information, externalities in public goods. It's not topics we're going to focus on in this class. I believe you've already seen a lot about them in previous classes. Okay, so, but the basic idea is if you can sort of address these particular issues as they are, and otherwise have the government leave its hands off the economy, then we'll reach an efficient allocation. So that's the first welfare theorem. The second welfare theorem is that any given Pareto efficient allocation in perfectly competitive market in general equilibrium can be reached with some initial allocation. So if you're concerned about whether the outcome is fair, or if equity is a concern, then society can reallocate some inputs and not sacrifice efficiency. You can just reach a different efficient outcome. Remember, there are lots of different allocations of goods across consumers that were efficient. All those points that fell on the consumption contract curve. But if we're concerned about some consumers having less and some consumers having more stuff, or are worried about fairness, the second welfare theorem says that we can reach a different allocation by lump sum transfer. So basically, if you sort of change the initial allocation, you can result in the desired or which efficient allocation you want. There is a problem here, however. It needs to be something that consumers don't anticipate or anticipate will ever happen again. Suppose that you take a lump sum transfer from the rich, or you somehow tax their income. If this is anticipated, then people might not work as hard to become rich because they know they're not going to get to keep as much of it. This creates a disincentive to work, which may create its own inefficiencies. Okay, so while in theory you could reach whatever efficient allocation you want by a different starting allocation, actually changing this in practice is problematic because it's going to lead to disincentives to work. Additionally, if we try to come to some sort of an agreement about what is the best social welfare function to maximize, we're not going to get a consensus because choice of a social welfare function is subjective. I will talk to you all soon. I hope you're all doing well. See you later.